Thank you. Good evening. Call this special closed session to order at 6:30 PM on May the 28th. As all of you know, we offer the ability for people to join us here in chambers or to join us via Zoom. And I would kindly request that if you have phones or a device of any kind that makes sound, to turn it off or turn it down, and I would appreciate that. With that said, the council is all here and accounted for, and so that is good as well. With that said, Mr. City Attorney, will you open us up and read the title of our session, please?
Yes, sir. The council will be convening in closed session with respect to anticipated litigation for a closed session meeting that's authorized pursuant to Government Code 54956.9C, D2, and E1 due to existing facts and circumstances giving rise to significant exposure to litigation against the city.
Thank you, sir. With that, I will open our public comment period. There is nobody physically here, as I see, to speak. And Madam Clerk, is there anybody on Zoom with a raised hand that wants to speak?
There is no one on Zoom.
All right. Seeing and hearing none, I will close our public comment period and adjourn us into closed session at 6:32 PM. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Sorry for a bit of a late start at 7:03. But we've been in closed session. Madam Clerk, are you prepared to read us out of closed session, or do you want our city manager to?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, okay.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. At this point, I'd like to announce that the city council met in closed session, received a confidential briefing, and direction was provided, and there is no further reportable action.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, as we always do, we always start off with prayer and our pledge. Tonight, I've asked Kyle to lead us in our pledge, but first we're going to pray, and I'm so happy to have a veteran pray. Yesterday, he was all dressed up in his Navy best, and he looked sharp. He's a chaplain, or will be soon, of that within the Navy. Reverend Rio Martinez. He is going to pray for us. So if you please stand and pray, and then Kyle will come up and lead us in our pledge. Thank you.
Let us pray. Father God, our fine city has just come away from a grand Memorial Day celebration, reflecting on the sacrifices of our nation's heroes, families, friends, first responders, elected officials, military members, and other upstanding citizens stood together, united under the banner of the American flag, acknowledging the privilege and freedoms they have, that we have, were paid for, and are preserved by the shed blood of the American service member. We are a grateful nation that chooses not to take these sacrifices for granted, but instead we honor such selflessness by committing to live our lives in a worthy manner, extending grace and gratitude where we can. Lord, may we imitate the attitude of the American service member. Teach us to be selfless, considerate, caring, and brave. Guide our steps with integrity and fill our minds with truth and our hearts with love. May we never be content with doing the bare minimum, but may we do all things with passion and excellence, fearful of no one but God alone. Bless this chamber and this mayor and council. May they adopt the mind of the American service member, for indeed they are servants as well. Bless these people who are gathered here and who serve you and the community as parents, teachers, retail workers, business owners, artists, students, and more. By your strength and wisdom and our willingness to follow you, guide us into our full potential to be your servants and a people who reflect your love to all. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Kyle?
All right, if everybody please repeat after me and look at the flag, right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, thank you for that incredible prayer, and may God continue to bless you, especially in your Navy work. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Kyle, for doing that as well for the pledge. Okay, does anybody want to reorder the agenda or add to it? I hope not. I don't know why they ask me that or telling me to say that. I guess it's possible, but
In case there's an emergency.
just in case. Okay, so hearing none, we will keep the agenda as is. Okay, public comment period. This is something that we always have each and every time that we meet. There's a time clock up on the screens. You need to stay within that. There's a yellow card up here if you want to express any opinions on that. We do have a couple of items that are open for public hearing, so would encourage you that if you want to address those, to wait until those come up. So anyway, and be kind and exercise grace in what you say, and direct anything that you have to say to me. So, Madam Clerk, are there any cards for public comment period?
There's no request at the time.
Okay. On Zoom, we offer this too. Are there any raised hands that are wanting to express themselves?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I'll ask anybody one more time if you want to speak. If not, we'll move on. Seeing and hearing none, we will close our public comment period and move on to member statements and reports. Karen, why don't you start?
I just wanted to wish congratulations to Chief Randazzo on his first official week as chief. So congratulations, sir. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Michael?
I'd like to thank David for putting on a great event yesterday at the Fairmont. You did a wonderful job. I know it's a lot of work, and I'm sure you're glad it's past you. But well done. Just one quick little announcement. Union Rescue Mission is holding a 5K run to fight homeless at the Rose Bowl Saturday, June 8th. Registration starts at 8 and the run starts at 9 a.m. That's all I have. Thank you.
Michael, thank you. Gary?
No, again, the ceremonies yesterday were great and appreciate all the work that goes into that and the work that is being done at Fairmont Cemetery. But we also had a 5K run yesterday morning and it was pretty impressive. We had, I don't know the numbers, but 900. Okay. I'm looking at the crowd and thinking there was at least 1,000 people there. So yeah, I walked it in record time, but I didn't come in last. I do have one question that I want to ask Adam. Last week in a press conference, a comment was made by the governor that right now there's some issues with some federal funds related to homelessness that is they're having trouble accounting for it. And a comment was made that there was waiting for cities and local municipalities to turn information back in and so on. I was wondering, did we, the city of Glendora, receive any of those federal funds through the state? And if we did, have we done the reporting that was necessary?
We did not. We've been pretty openly advocating for any type of funding for homelessness, which we're not incredibly successful at. But as it relates to his statements, no, we have not received any of that funding.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. David?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for the acknowledgements from the Memorial Day program. It was well attended and appreciate the support. We got to attend the first of several this week, and into next week's the area is doing some, but our students are graduating, promoting, advancing to their next steps in their journey. It's always inspirational to see great minds leave where they're at and go on to new journeys. So I congratulate the students, their families. Some it's a big mark, some it's an expected mark. We all hope to get to that mark. So congratulations, families and students, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I want to echo what has been said for the great job that you did and your team up there. Oakdale had a wonderful time there and event. I was able to welcome folks there, and Karen spoke, prayed there, and the chief spoke there, and they did a really good job too. I also want to say thank you. About a week and a half ago, we had a very first thing here. Does anybody know what happened? A cultural day occurred. First time we've ever had one. And it was a wonderful day where the cultures that make up our amazing city, probably not all of them, but most of them were able to be heard and shared, and their food was amazing. It was tasty and it smelled good. And the city did just a wonderful job of being able to express those that we live with and worship with and go to school with. And I just want to say thank you to Annie Warner. I know she is going to kill me the next time she sees me because she hates to be said like that, but she did a great job. And Gary, and just a tremendous amount of team players made that day a very special day. Personally, I hope that the budget will be able to accommodate that again, because I think it was a great start, and it was just a fun time to walk around and exchange stories and get to meet friends and see the amazing skill that a lot of the cultures that we have here have. So thank you for that. I also want to make sure that everybody knows that there's another special event that's coming up on June the 13th, and that is an update on our city. Historically, that has been a lunch, but we're changing things up this year, and it's going to be a state of the city at 5:30 down at the Crowther Teen Center. And it's going to be a tremendous time of updates from our staff, music, food, just a lot of, wonderful things. And we want everybody to come. And Adam, I don't know if there's any other details that you want to speak about, but we're going to advertise it more. More updates will come, but do you want to say anything more, or I've said
Those-
enough?
We said everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
so please mark that down and make it a point to be there. It's something new, different, so there's always a little bit of tension, angst, excitement, whatever you feel when there's a change made. But I think it's going to be an exciting time for everybody to hear some of the exciting things that are going on here. And so hope that you will do that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just in reference to the Culture Fest, I wanted to give a shout out to Rotary and especially to Gary and Kathy Boyer, who I think
Yes.
were there all day long staffing the Rotary booth, which I think was a great visual for the day.
Mm.
Had that cool little map on there where people could say where their families came from and then write notes on the other side. That little display in the middle got most conversation for the day, I think. So thank you to Rotary for putting that on and bringing it to life in a very visual way.
Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. It was great to engage with everybody. We were sitting looking at that map. Anybody that was at the festival and had a chance to see it, Russia was so large on that map, and we kept hoping that somebody would come along and finally stick a flag in Russia, and someone finally did.
Mm.
And then I found out it was just a child that grabbed a pen and decided to stick it somewhere. So next year we'll find somebody from
Yeah.
Russian heritage.
Thank you. Very good. Adam, any update or comments?
I was just going to say, just a quick reminder, it was said earlier this evening, school's almost out, or school has been out for a week, or will be out next week or this week. And so just an extra reminder to be aware, there's going to be more kids out and about running around. So if you're driving around, just make sure you watch out for the little ones. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, anything, update?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Danny, thank you. All right, we will close our public comment period and move on to item 3. Public hearing to consider a resolution to levy and collect assessments from the Glendora Village bid for fiscal year 2024-25. It is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing now, and Alicia will come back as she did a couple weeks ago and update us and give us the report. Alicia, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. Tonight, as mentioned, is the second and final public hearing that is required to levy and collect assessments for the Business Improvement District fiscal year 2024-2025. As a reminder, those businesses subject to bid assessment are represented on the bid boundary map you see here, which is going to be south of Bennett and north of Foothill and west of Vermont and east of Vista Bonita. Also included is going to be the shopping center south of Foothill and across from City Hall. The process to renew annual assessments for the Business Improvement District does require several steps. The process began with the bid board reviewing the fiscal year 2024 bid budget and approving the annual plan. Then on March 26th, City Council adopted the bid's annual plan and the resolution of intent to levy assessments for the upcoming fiscal year. Following council action, staff sent out a copy of the resolution and annual plan to affected businesses via U.S. mail, as well as we published a notice in the Examiner for the upcoming hearings. On May 14th, the first public meeting was held where bid members and members of the public were given the opportunity to provide public comment and testimony. Which brings us to tonight, where the City Council will hold the final public hearing, where once again, the public will be given the opportunity to provide testimony. Any received protest votes through the end of this public hearing will be tabulated by the city clerk's office. In an absence of a 50% weighted vote, City Council may approve to adopt the resolution to levy and collect assessment. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. At this time, staff does recommend that the City Council conduct the public hearing and in absence of a majority protest vote, adopt the resolution to renew and collect assessments. And with that, I will turn the item back to City Council to open and conduct the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. As indicated, we are in a public hearing on this matter and only on this matter. And so I will ask the city clerk if there's any cards that you have from anybody that wants to speak on this matter.
We do not, Mayor.
You do not. And on Zoom, is there anybody that has a raised hand?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I will close our public hearing on this item. And I have been advised that I need to ask the city clerk to tabulate the ballots.
Mayor, with the close of the public hearing, no ballots were received. Therefore, a majority protest was not met. At this time, I request that it is appropriate for the City Council to adopt the proposed resolution approving the levy and collection of assessments for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District for fiscal year 2024-2025. Can I request a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, a motion has been made by Michael, and I believe I heard a second from Karen.
Yes.
Are we doing the, there it is. Okay. All right, if we would all please vote, and then I'll ask the city clerk to call a oral roll call, please.
Councilmember Alowis,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Freenall,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. All right, we will go to item 4. This is the first reading and introduction of an ordinance amending section 2.40.151 of the Glendora Code and a resolution electing under Public Contract Code Section 22030 to become subject to the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Procedures. If you're not encouraged and with great anticipation on that, you don't have much of a life. But we are going to be led in this public hearing by Desiree Hernandez. She's the accounting supervisor who has the very important job of making sure that we operate well within the standards of this code. So Desiree, it's yours.
Thank you. Good evening, esteemed mayor and city council members. I am Desiree Hernandez, accounting supervisor, and tonight for your consideration is the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. The Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act was enacted in 1983 to help promote uniformity of the cost accounting standards and bidding procedures on construction work performed or contracted by public entities in the state. Benefits of this program include simplified bidding for projects that are $200,000 or less, reduced number of formal bids based on project size, expedited contracting for projects under $200,000. Many participating agencies appreciate the program because it has given them more leeway in the execution of public works projects under a certain dollar amount. It also has sped up the award process, expedited project delivery, reduced the time, effort, and expenses associated with bidding projects under $200,000. And it has also simplified administration for those projects. Currently, an informal bidding process is necessary for the amounts between $2,500 and $50,000. This process includes obtaining 3 quotes. A formal bidding process is necessary for any amount over $50,000. This includes advertising, submitting a bid online, reviewing bid submissions, and awarding a contract to the lowest bidder. When processing a formal bid, it can take anywhere between 60 to 90 days to make it to council, resulting in the possibility of supplies increasing in cost and decreasing in availability. With UPCA, our time will decrease to anywhere between 30 to 45 days, giving us the best possibility of maintaining proposed costs and reducing the number of change orders needed. Under UPCA, the City Council will continue to authorize any contract over $50,000. It simply is speeding up the back-end process to get these items to the City Council in a timely manner and has no direct fiscal impact. At this time, staff recommends that the City Council introduce for the first reading of the ordinance, amending section 2.40.151 to chapter 2.40 of the Glendora Municipal Code and adopt the resolution. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Since this is a public hearing on this item, I will entertain any cards that we might have or the public that has expressed an interest to speak on this. Madam Clerk, do we have any cards?
No, we do not, Mayor.
And how about on Zoom?
We do not, and I do want to announce that we did receive one item in correspondence with this public hearing. It's been incorporated delivered under separate covered and distributed to council and the public.
Okay, thank you. And yes, we did get a copy of that.
And just for clarification, that is an amendment to one Exhibit B of the staff report.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will close our public hearing and bring it back to council and ask you to direct any questions you have to Desiree. Michael, we'll start with you. Anything? Desiree, that's a win because
As soon as you got past him, I was like, I got this.
Love.
Yeah.
and you saw everybody kind of sigh when I said that's a win. So you all know why I said that, right? So good job on your report. Gary. Karen.
Great job, Desiree.
Oh, thank you so much.
David.
No, I was so thrilled and understood it all, surprisingly.
Oh, good.
Good job. So
All right,
no
thank
questions.
you so much. Thank you for your time.
And I will pass on asking you any questions. And I've been told that this is your first time to make a presentation to council.
I think she'll have to make all of them from this point forward if this is.
Good job.
Didn't show. Yeah.
Good job. And well, thank you and keep up the good work and excellent job.
I'll move items 1 through 2.
Okay,
Mayor, let's close the public hearing.
close the public hearing. Yes. And
I'll second.
Michael, okay, here we go. Okay, a motion's been made by Karen, seconded by David. Please vote, and then I'll ask the clerk to call a oral roll call.
Councilmember Alowis,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friednall,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. We will then move on to the consent agenda. Items 5 through 9 can be approved by one vote. And okay,
Second it.
Michael has made that motion, seconded by Karen, to approve the consent calendar items 5 through 9.
Councilmember Alowis,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Friednall,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friednall,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. We're moving along well here. Let's go to item 10. For the public, there are 14 things that we will be addressing tonight, so we're on item 10. And that is the discussion on the city's accessible electric vehicle chargers. This was an item that was requested by Michael and David. And to report is our fine, outstanding Assistant City Manager, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you,
Sir.
Honorable Mayor, City Council. As the mayor just mentioned, we will be talking about the city's publicly accessible electric vehicle chargers. We currently have 4 electric vehicle chargers that are publicly accessible at 2 separate locations. There are 3 currently across the street here from City Hall at the Vista Bonita parking lot and 1 at the Transportation Center office. All of them are level 2 chargers, and I'll explain what that means in the next couple of slides. They're currently free to the public to choose. The only limitation we currently have on them is that you cannot be parked at those chargers for more than 4 hours. I will be the first one to attest that we do adhere and enforce that 4-hour parking standard. It's a lesson you don't learn once, but learn twice. So so we're there. Given the number of EV chargers, we know that they're heavily oversubscribed. If you stand and look at the parking lot during the day, there's this ballet of cars moving in and out regularly. It's one of the more common complaints that we get from users of the chargers is their insufficient availability, and it's just difficult to find chargers throughout our community on a relatively easy basis. So this indicates a need for additional charging infrastructure in the city. And as I detailed in the staff report, there is a growing demand for vehicle chargers given the ambitious goals that have been set by California. So our discussion tonight is particularly timely. The older infrastructure and grid here in Glendora does present some challenges for expanding the availability of electric vehicle chargers. We know that some providers have previously inquired about installing additional chargers at different parts of our city. And we know that the timelines associated with being able to deliver that power to those locations didn't necessarily align with their project goals. So we certainly have some work to do on that front, engaging with our partners at Edison to figure out what's feasible. The location of the chargers, as well as the charging infrastructure type because of the power demands associated with them. There are 3 levels of chargers currently available. Level 1 is the slowest. This is literally the one that you can plug into your outlet at home. It'll take you, tens of hours to a couple of days to charge your vehicle, depending on how fast that vehicle could charge and your battery capacity. Level 2 is considerably faster. You can, again, depending on the model of car that you have, you can add between 14 and 35 miles per range per hour. That's a pretty common standard. Again, that's what we have currently available. And then level 3 is what we consider a fast charger. We can get up to 10 miles of range per minute. So, for some vehicles, you can go from 0 to 80% in about 40 minutes. So fairly quickly. The city's been involved in a couple of EV charger expansion efforts that are primarily grant-based. There are 2 that I want to highlight specifically. One is we worked alongside SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments, to develop an infrastructure plan for the San Gabriel Valley exclusive to electric vehicle chargers. The city was one of 18 cities that participated in this effort. We had 5 sites here in the city evaluated as part of that infrastructure plan, and we hope and we know that will form the basis of some additional grant application efforts in the future. The second one is a grant application that we submitted to the U.S. Department of Transportation, whereby we wanted to request sufficient funding to install 12 free to use and publicly accessible off-grid chargers throughout the city. So these chargers are quite literally don't require a connection to the infrastructure, to the grid. They were solar powered with a large battery, so you could quite literally just park and get a level 2 charge into your vehicle. And so we picked popular destinations here in Glendora, primarily our parks, as well here at City Hall and at the library. Unfortunately, I should mention, we did receive word that we were not successful at that Department of Transportation grant. Ironically, because our application wasn't large enough. A lot of the programs that were actually funded were a higher number of chargers throughout their city. So, our grant was relatively meager compared to those other grant applications that were awarded. As I mentioned previously, a city does not currently charge for the use of the electric vehicle chargers. The more and more we get comfortable with electrical infrastructure, the more and more it becomes a common practice. It is very rare actually to find free vehicle chargers these days. So lots of cities in our surrounding vicinity already have them in place. They're typically set up to help offset some operational maintenance and replacement costs for those electric vehicle chargers. I should note that there is no real universal standard for user fees. There are a lot of variables that are taken into consideration above what I just mentioned, those three elements that I mentioned. So there's a little bit of work for us to be able to do to make sure that we're pegging it to what the market is currently providing. Taking all of that into consideration, we drafted a couple of options for the city council to consider if the council chooses to address charging infrastructure use. One option is to replace and upgrade the existing chargers with level 2 or level 3 chargers, which would provide faster charging speeds and potentially alleviate the oversubscription issue. Another option is to develop a comprehensive plan for the placement of additional EV chargers at key locations throughout the city, both on public and private sites. So we would use some of the work that's already been done as part of the previous grant efforts to deploy electric vehicle charging stations, again, dependent upon the direction we receive. The city could also explore the expansion of publicly accessible EV chargers at other city facilities and locations. So basically just on public sites that are frequented by our residents and visitors to our community. Again, we want to make sure that we enhance the accessibility and availability of that infrastructure. And lastly, to support the ongoing operation, maintenance, and replacement costs of the infrastructure, the city could consider implement an EV user fee. This fee would help generate some revenue, again, to offset those expenses that I just mentioned. I do want to share, because this was a question that frequently comes up. The table that was included in your staff report that's currently on the screen details the costs that the city has incurred over the last 2 full years, and for 2024 projected, those are on a fiscal year basis. So in 22, the city expended about just under 26,000. In 2023, the city expended about $31,600. And just based on projections, we're currently upwards of $61,000 by the time the fiscal year is up. So with that, staff's recommendation is that you receive this report and provide city staff with direction accordingly.
Thank you, sir. Excellent job. Bring it back to council. Michael, why don't we start with
Thank
you?
you, Mendel. Well, I says, thank you for the comprehensive report. And I did ask this for this because we didn't have a comprehensive overall study on this. We don't have a scope of plan, operations, and things of that nature. We have the transportation division that has chargers over there, which we don't charge for, no pun intended. And then across the street over here, we have some outdated charging units, and we don't charge for that either. And with, as you pointed out, we have a growing need for this charging situation. We have a lot of staff here that charge their vehicles. We have a lot of visitors. And I think that citywide, this would be a great option to have. I think will bring some business to the city, but we do need to capture the cost, not just the charging cost. We need to capture the maintenance cost, the reporting cost that you have to do. And I would highly suggest that after our discussion here, that we go after the charge transport program for the DCFC charging, so you can charge your vehicle in about 10 minutes. Those are expensive, but they have a program in place to put all the stub outs and things of that nature, and then go get some stackable grants to pay for the rest of that infrastructure. And it's going to be a bit of a process. It'll be about a 3-year process to make those happen. But I think overall, with the advent of the EVs growing in that industry and the battery technology getting better and things of that nature and the need, I think it's quite appropriate for us to look at this. If nothing else, put a plan in place of how we're going to recoup our costs that we have for the electricity. And if we do the charge transport program, you have a time of use that you have to abide by and pay back for the 10-year agreement that you have to have, and again, amortize the maintenance and the maintenance costs as well as the equipment costs. So I'll wait to hear from my colleagues of what they have to say, but I have an idea of a path forward. So thank you very much for your report.
Michael, thank you. Gary?
One of the things I thought about as we started looking into this is the fact that as we start doing infrastructure projects in the city, and I can think recently, we just finished the parking lot over at Minor Park, and last year or so we did do a parking lot down at Gladstone with a lot of infrastructure upgrades. That maybe we need to create some sort of a policy so that moving forward, whenever we're doing projects, we do look into the possibility of creating these. I don't know if it's possible, but I know right now we're looking at doing an electrical project on South Glendora Avenue that's going to help to power the historic streetlights if we put those back in place. And so I don't know if it would be possible to put electric chargers actually right on the public street, if that's done on a regular basis. But the one thing, as far as what Michael's talking about with what we currently have in place, I agree that we do need to, that's taxpayer money that's being used to fund these things. I did have a question, as the costs have went up over the last 3 years. Do we know, is that additional use that's taking place, or is it because of increased electricity costs?
It's additional use. It's a little both, but the use is actually being
Mostly
increasing.
additional use.
Yeah.
Okay. And then have we had any instances where I can see people ending up in arguments while somebody's waiting to charge their vehicle and there's a car sitting there that's been there too long? Has that been an issue for us?
Generally speaking, we haven't had too many of those types of issues. It is not uncommon. I'll share this from personal experience, where people will walk by and try to disconnect your car or unplug your car so that they could plug their cars. Aftermarket products now lock those things in place, but it's not uncommon for stuff like that to happen. Or that's also another thing. I have the few instances that I've charged my car recently. Sometimes I've had notes from people who are waiting to charge their cars who say, "Hey, before you move your car, can you give me a call? I'll meet you there in 5 minutes or 10 minutes," because they're relatively local.
Okay. But anyway, it's worth a discussion, but I think moving forward, we do need to make that part of the planning process, because we're going to be doing some substantial infrastructure improvements around this over the next 10 years. So
Great.
that's all I had. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, Gary. Karen, any questions?
No, I think we definitely need to expand the program. Two of the things that I thought about when the parking structure is built adjacent to the train station, my assumption is there will be charging facilities there.
Yes.
Because that seems to be the norm. And then I don't remember seeing any at any of our shopping centers. So continuing that private conversation with private places, because I think especially Walmart and the marketplace and all of those people that get off the freeway might say, "Hey, I'll go charge my car there," and then go shop in Glendora because that's there. So
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As kind of was said tonight, one of the largest problems we have is electrical capacity. And so when Tesla was the only game in town, they were expanding rapidly. They had approached the city about charging stations in the village. And we're like, great, come on down. And Edison couldn't provide power and was like years out. So, and I think as the council member said, we'd really have to investigate what sort of infrastructure we can put in advance for a third party to come in and place some chargers. I don't know if you know any more off the top of your head, but that's a really interesting and probably forward-thinking thought process that we should look at, not just for electrical, but any number of things like fiber lines and so on and so forth in our streets as well. So that point's well taken.
I will say 2 chargers were installed in front of Kohl's.
oh, yes, that's right. I did see those. Yeah.
They looked like giant billboards.
Yeah.
Electronic
Well,
transport, yeah.
And I chuckled to myself because I was thinking of the electricity issue and thought, oh, well, maybe the other car dealers have those big signs, may have to get a little less electricity, so we charge the electric cars. But no, that just looking at some ways to expand it, not only the public sites, but definitely the private sites that would benefit the city in the long run.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
David?
Yeah, thank you. I concur on, we need to obviously look at infrastructure and expansion of facilities. I think the continuation of free chargers is something we cannot support. And that I painfully watched somebody try to back up to one of those at Kohl's, and they need to learn to back up before they figure out how to plug it in. Walmart does have several, and Citrus College has a bank of chargers that I believe are open to the public and best used off schedule, so not competing against student time. But so we have some, but more is always a better opportunity. Would explore, support exploring that, but not subsidizing that. And I'm sorry that the attempts to get, we never seem big enough and bad enough to get good grant money somehow. I don't know why that's sad state, but it is. Great Glendora, we don't need it, huh? Well, maybe we do.
Well, I think it's just, we need to reimagine it a little bit more, maybe not just Glendora, but work with some of our surrounding cities. So we package a much bigger product and frankly, advertise it as a regional solution to this particular challenge. So I think there are opportunities. There are funding. There is still funding available as a result of a number of programs that have been funded by Congress over the last couple of years. So I think there still remains a lot of opportunities for us to be, at least be able to throw our hat in the ring.
Do we know if a couple of the commercial sites, you mentioned the shopping center and the marketplace area, are those the very fast chargers or are they?
Those are not. Those are level 2s.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Gary.
One other thought when Karen was talking about the private entities putting these in, I will assume that when a private entity is going to install these on their property, there's a process that they have to go through at the city with permits and inspections and so on and so forth. Do we have any type of an expedited process, or maybe because there is going to be a greater need for these over the next 10 years or so, maybe even a way of discounting or making the cost to install them at a private level as low as possibly can to incentivize people to put them in?
I'll take the first part. Actually, I can take both of those parts of the question. The first part is, yes, there is a standardized process. There was a piece of legislation a few years ago that created kind of a statewide template for expediting the processes of electric vehicle chargers. To your second point, absolutely. If they're part of our grant program in particular, we should help them expedite the review process and not charge them anything. They're already giving us access to their land. And at the end of the day, it's a win for them because hopefully their people will get out of their cars and shop where they're charging their vehicles, which ultimately comes back to the community. So I think that's a net win for everybody.
The question would be if let's say we used a grant process to help somebody, and I'll use Walmart, to put them on their property, would those then be city chargers or would those belong to the property owner at that point?
It depends based on the grant requirements first. So for a term, they will likely be ours, and then we would turn them over to the private entity.
Okay, so the private entity would benefit financially from them?
No.
Okay.
Typically, more recently, I should say, the grant programs, like our own application, we would basically make those chargers free for a year or two, and then assess a fee. That fee would be standardized across the city based on what we ultimately develop.
And who would pay the electricity for those chargers?
The users through that fee.
Oh, the user. Okay, thanks.
But there's a caveat to that too, though. If the city owned it, they would get the LCF credits, the carbon credits.
That's correct. And we have generated credit based on the 4 chargers that we currently have, to the tune of about $40,000 or a little bit more than $40,000.
Just a couple thoughts. I would support a robust plan to expand. And I would hope that whatever we do, we would double it. Because I think that's just where things are going. And I also support fees, fair fees, but I think that there's costs, as Michael has said, to bring this equipment in. So I certainly support that, but I think we need to do it, and we need to expand, and the quicker that we can, and Kieran's right. I mean, if we can be really thinking about our business world and put strategic points there, then that would be good. Just an operational thing, because I don't drive a EV car, but has it evolved so there's a standardized plug? Because I know that when it first came out, the Tesla people had all of the quote stations, and if you drove a Chevy Leaf, you couldn't find one for 1,000 miles. But has that evolved so it's a standardized plug or not? And would ours be a standardized so it fits everybody?
So they have not standardized the plug
Okay.
just yet. So Tesla vehicles do have a separate plug than virtually every other vehicle. There are adapters that you can buy.
Okay,
That will help charge your vehicle irrespective of it. More recently, the federal government has actually negotiated an agreement with Tesla to basically allow for non-Tesla users
mm,
to take advantage of their infrastructure. They're still
Okay.
rolling that process out, but it will become more commonplace in the future.
so the ones that we have right now, are they just a Tesla station? I mean,
These are
plug?
non-Tesla.
Non-Tesla,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
all right,
So it is a different plug.
Okay,
So for
okay.
folks that own Teslas, they have to put an adapter on
okay,
before they can plug it into their car.
okay, good, all right. That's all I have, and I think I see Michael's light on, so
So
Michael,
just to add some things as well, as Moises mentioned, that there's an there's several grants out there, opportunity, but there's a Start grant coming up that I'm sure Stephen's aware of in July. It's $750,000 maximum that you can apply for, and so far no one's been turned down for that grant in the past, but it comes up every year. So with that, I kind of want to initiate a motion to give staff the greatest mobility to come back with us to flush this out. Investigate the various EV charging sites in and around the city with a high priority on DCFC charging, fast charging, including but not limited to the parking lot on Vista Bonita. Develop a charging pricing plan that includes the cost of electricity, monitoring costs, as well as maintenance and equipment replacement. And if that's sufficient for staff to go to the next step to create another staff report and investigate where we can go from here, I'd like to put that into place.
all right, so a motion has been made. Does the clerk have a copy of that?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Maybe you can put that up. What I heard, sounded something like I could support.
On
but-
there right now.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Could I ask a question that maybe we could add in there, and this may or may not be necessary, but to include a policy to include this in any future infrastructure project?
Sure, the whole idea is just to give them get a scope. If you want to add that, that's fine. But that's the whole idea, to give them a broad enough.
I think that's
Makes sense.
a fine addition. I think the council member, in addition to that, there are several other things that we would look at, including in capital projects that are coming up. So that's fine on the inclusion. Staff would be fine with that amendment.
I
I'm good with that.
support this. Is there a date that you want to affix to this, or can staff give us a kind of a best guess when you could come back with something like this? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
No, I think probably
What's-
late summer. Can we say?
Yeah.
August or September, we'll be back.
okay. Just to, we could have that sense of, when we're gonna
And sooner if we're able to gather all the information.
keep that going. Any questions on, Karen, did your hand go? Oh,
No.
okay, all right. All right, we ready to vote?
So there is a motion on the table by Michael Ellis and then by David Friedendahl. I will now conduct.
I have a quick question I want to ask for staff. If in the meantime, there is a grant opportunity that comes up and you typically have to ask us for approval to go in after that grant, can you do that on your own? Or do you have to come back to us?
Oftentimes the grant requirements require specific council action via resolution or some action, but staff's always on the lookout. So I think we've been pretty good at that. Stephen has been great at that. So I know, yeah, and Vanessa, sorry.
For
I'll leave
whatever
it up,
reason, our
Vanessa.
timelines don't, we'll err on the side of applying and then come back to council.
Good,
Perfect.
please do.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's vote, and then Madam Clerk can call a roll call.
Councilmember Ellis?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedendahl?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you, sir. Excellent job. This is great news. A good deal. Okay, item 11. Give consideration of changes to the City of Glendora Public Meeting rules and protocols for the conduct of public meetings, proceeding, and business in the city's current hybrid meeting model. Wow, that sounds like a big deal to think about, right? Well, it is. And to report out is our esteemed city clerk, Kathleen Sussman.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Tonight I'm here to request council consider proposed changes to the City of Glendora's public meeting rules and protocols. And one component or one of the changes we are proposing is a change to the Community Services Commission's time and frequency of their regular meetings, as they have met and requested by a unanimous vote that the council approve and authorize the resolution to state that they will be meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 7, and that instead of meeting on a monthly basis, they would meet every odd month on the third Thursday. Some additional changes that have been made and are being proposed for your consideration. Many of them were administrative in nature, and this included anything from grammatical fixes, acronym cleanups, a change in the use of term legislative body to governing body to better incorporate non-legislative city boards and commissions. Some were non-substantial changes from legal that have been incorporated and cleaned up in the resolution to make the track changes version of substantial changes much easier for you to read. Attachment A to your staff report outlines all substantial changes. Most of these substantial changes were involved Article 4 of the resolution, public hearings, Section 3. This area pretty much got rewritten to be updated to address some inconsistencies between policy and practice and provide for a more accurate and detailed outline of the current practices to ensure our legal compliance across all our public meetings. In addition, there were some minor changes under Article 3, Rules of Conduct, and we updated verbiage under that section to include some changes recommended by the city attorney and delete duplicate verbiage under multiple different subsections. The proposed resolution is before you for consideration. And with it, the council would approve this. It goes for all city council meetings as well as any city council board or commission. The next area we want to discuss is probably going to be a little bit more interesting. The city has been utilizing a hybrid meeting model since probably 2020 with the beginning of COVID. During this time, we've changed this hybrid model several times depending on the city's ability to whether meet in public, have to meet virtually, depending on what health conditions were at that time. At this point, we want to ask for council's opinion on how that hybrid format model is working for you and the public in general. Several cities have considered and are moving to transitioning away from the hybrid model or utilizing a hybrid model, but limiting the components in which we, I guess, utilize. So the best example for this is because of some issues we've been having with public comment and speakers calling in with racial comments, sometimes not appropriate discussions during public comment. Many cities have transitioned away completely from allowing public comment via Zoom or virtually. While the meetings are sometimes still streamed and they're accessible via Zoom, public comment would only, in that situation, is only allowed via mail, phone call, and in person. So we are curious to see if that is a avenue the council wishes for us to investigate further, or if there is more interest in maintaining the current hybrid model that allows the public to participate virtually, in person, by mail, phone, and pretty much almost any other way you could possibly think of. I do have several hybrid options that are listed. Option 1 is to continue utilizing our current hybrid meeting model. The second is to utilize a hybrid meeting model, but only allow remote participation for presenters, development applicants, staff, et cetera. Public comment received through email and mail would still be allowed. And option 3 would be to discontinue remote public comment and remote participation from any additional person. Public comment received through the mail or email would still be allowed. In addition, we did do a brief survey for you and outlined some of our findings. The staff report outlines obstacles, opportunities, and some of the different steps cities are taking to try and protect the public meeting and the viewing of that meeting. So at this point, I'm open for questions, conversations, and any direction you want to provide.
All right, thank you. Excellent report and update and a lot to think about here. Gary, let's start with you this time.
Okay.
You were not expecting that.
No, just a lot to absorb. and
Yeah,
a lot-
it is.
a lot to
It is a
digest.
lot.
I'd like to take one subject first, only because we had a conversation about the community services
Mhm.
meetings. I understand that during the meeting, it was a unanimous decision to request this, and moving it to 6 o'clock, I don't see being an issue at all. But in conversations that I had, I came away with the conclusion that I'm not sure the Community Services Commission was 100% on board, even though they made that decision. And the way our conversation went was the fact that, there was a time the Community Services Commission was not real relevant. And we worked really hard to get the Community Services Commission to be more involved and more engaged and so on. And I worry a little bit that maybe because of COVID and we had this conversation that the current commissioners were mostly appointed during the COVID period. And so their involvement has not been as engaging as what it was prior to that. And so, personally, I asked Eddie Commugian to be here. He's the chair of the Community Services Commission. I asked him to come by tonight, so if we had any questions or whatever, we could address them to him. But it's not that difficult to cancel a meeting if there's nothing to speak about. And it's much more difficult if we go to meetings every other month to add an additional meeting for one reason or another. So my thought on that subject would be that I think moving it to 6 o'clock is not an issue. That'd be better for staff. But as far as maybe the Community Services Commission needs to have some additional conversation amongst themselves before they make the move to the every other month.
Can I just offer one insight?
Sure.
I think one of the challenging things, and I think the point about it being appointed during COVID is a really fascinating one. One of the things we've not discussed is the city council, and I think it's important to remember the city council appoints individuals to boards and commissions to carry out the policy of the city council. It's not the other way around. And so where the planning commission, through our ordinances and regulations and state law, has very specific criteria they look at, the library board, in addition to extra authority that the council has provided, also has the ed code in which they follow. And our water commission only meets quarterly. So the Community Services Commission, there are some rules and regulations about what they actually look at, but the comment was made about, bringing items forward. And I think in order to bring items forward, there needs to be specific council direction on what they want the commission to look at. What do you want recommendations on? What do you want the commission to work on? And so I think maybe one of the action items, if the council would, is maybe having John and his staff come back with exactly what is provided to the Community Services, the commission. We used to have a trails commission, obviously that's no longer an actual act. And I think it may be a good reminder, and I agree with you, council member, that they do a lot of review. They're at a lot of places and a lot of grand openings of late, which is great. But maybe perhaps this body needs to have a reminder of exactly what's being asked of that body and have that conversation. If you would be amenable to that, I think that may be a great way to help us all be on the same page about expectations.
I agree with that. I think, one of the things that happened is we had this discussion about 6 years ago or so. We got very involved in it and very robust with all the different commissions. And then everything was going okay for about an hour and a half, and then COVID hit. So maybe it's time to have that discussion again. And so my thought would be that maybe that needs to take place before we make a decision to move to every other month. So it's just my opinion on that at this point. That's item number one, I guess. And then again, Eddie's here. If we have any questions for him, he'd offered to step up and talk to us. But as far as the hybrid, looking at the chart that you've done, people are all over the place. There's no rhyme, no reason for it.
Yep.
As far as instances that we have had here locally, I only know of the one instance that just recently happened with the library. Are there others that?
We've had different internal issues, but the recent one with the library was the first one we've had related to boards and commissions.
Okay.
And to be transparent, as Adam liked to say, while nothing was said that was illegal, it just was very uncomfortable. Yeah.
And so people are empowered when they're sitting at a keyboard or sitting in their own computer at home. So a couple of questions is, would we have the ability, or would boards and commissions have the ability to allow public comment on an agenda item basis, so that maybe there would be certain items that we would go, this is something that's going to be of a lot of interest to the general public, so we could allow remote public comment for those items?
We can, and actually council and the boards and commissions have that ability now. The only issue is that if you're not consistent about allowing it, how else is the public supposed to know they're going to have that opportunity? Really, if you're going to allow people to participate virtually, I think you need to be consistent about it and at least allow that during the public comment, during public hearings. People need to easily know how to access.
I think one of the other policy considerations for the council, and this question is the logical one, right? It's how do we try to always appease everyone to allow access to the city council on important items. And so by default, one of the questions that will come up is, well, is my item important enough? How come my item's not as important as someone else's item? Then you get into a philosophical debate about importancy of items and who gets that call. I think that is the policy question, is on clarity. So I think we could craft language, and I've talked to the clerk about how to allow for flexibility. I think the council should probably consider is, if you're looking at staff to post meetings and say, this meeting we will allow Zoom and this meeting we will not allow Zoom, what it is and how we make that decision is not always easy, but doable if the council would like to do so.
And my other question is, would we legally be allowed to require people to share their names, which they could always make up, or to require that cameras be on?
No.
Can't do that. Okay. Those the only questions, comments I have.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Karen.
Yeah, I had asked that question earlier because that was my thought too, was I hate to take that away from people, and maybe that middle ground would be, say, identify yourself. So at least maybe we sift things out. So I think, unfortunately, because of the way that it is, we can't ask people when they come to the podium either. They don't have to identify themselves. So that's the challenge we get into. So either we do it or we don't do it. I know that once we started allowing Zoom, that it opened the door for people maybe who worked outside of town to be able to, reach us by Zoom and make a public comment because they couldn't make it back to Glendora in time, or people who, for one reason or another, couldn't physically get here by 7 p.m. I think it really opened the door for wider participation. So I hate to close that door, but I do realize that There are a lot of keyboard warriors out there, whether they're using Zoom at public comment time or other times they're behind their computer, whatever, that people are emboldened when they don't have to identify themselves. So I know it's that tricky thing, but part of me wants to lean towards freedom of speech. I don't like their speech, but they have as much right as the next person to be Looney Tunes. So
All right, Michael, any thoughts?
Yes, I'll make this simple. I'm in support of the 6 PM. I think that we should send back to the Community Services Commission to talk further about the frequency and then come back to us with some reports made from the community services as far as the scope of what they can and can't do, what they should be doing, or what our thoughts are from us. I'm in support of option number 2. We need to move on to have the flexibility only for those folks that are going to be presenting. We don't really have very many folks that present via Zoom or anything of that nature now anyway. It's very rare. So I think it's convenient for the folks that have to present and make it easier on staff that way. It's a very simple, it's clean. We don't have to explain ourselves why we're letting some people talk and other folks we are not going to let talk. That's not appropriate. And then we have our public comment period. They can come in anytime and speak their piece. So that's where I stand right now. Thank you.
All right, Michael, thank you. David?
Thank you. On the Community Services Commission issue, I think great things have come out, and if nothing else, the opportunity to give and take a little bit on charge and tasks, I think is valid. I would ask the clerk, is it simpler to schedule a special meeting or to cancel a scheduled meeting?
Honestly, it's probably simpler to cancel a regular meeting than try and work with people's schedules.
I was thinking that's probably the case as well. So I would be encouraging to maintain the schedule and cancel on lack of urgency or demand versus going through the exercise of trying to add something that's not on the calendar.
I think one of the conversations that comes up, and I think I've heard it on a couple of the boards, is just that sometimes they're getting the same stuff every month. And I think this leads back to what Adam said. Maybe we need to actually see what the scope is for that board and see if it either needs to be expanded or give them some additional detail on what's expected before we just direct that item back to them so that they can better utilize their time. Because I know in the last year, community services has been, especially with a lot of the reorganization that happens, they've been handling certain things a lot different, which has improved some efficiencies and allowed them to develop new projects, which I also know that the commissioners get involved with attending. So that was one of the reasons it kind of came up, is like, well, now they're attending all these other events in addition. So do we want to kind of offset that? And I think that's kind of how the conversation came in. But if there are additional duties that their council is interested in them taking on, I think that is probably a better conversation.
Yeah, I would agree, because I think I know all the commissioners are very committed to doing the best they can and have a lot to contribute. And I would hate to diminish that opportunity because they're all very good people. So yeah, I think we should go that direction. On the public comment, I would want to continue with option 1, frankly, and continue with the hybrid manner of what we're doing. I think we have the option at the presiding officer's ability. If something's going very wrong, we can stop the meeting if we had to. So I would like to say, let's continue as we're going and hope that respect and civility might continue to prevail on a major opportunity than less than such as a regular practice. And I certainly support all the language cleanup and the housekeeping things on those. Are lots of work there, so that's good.
All right, David, thank you. Gary?
Just
anything?
to clarify, I'm not 100% sure we can stop public comment regardless And I've been at meetings that the comments go way, way over the line and
It is a know it as you see it. People can say, to most people's perspective, very terrible things, but as long as it's done in the right manner, you cannot stop them from saying those things.
We may not be able to interrupt a person if they're on that borderline, but can we end the public comment period?
No.
No, it would have to be something that is clearly disruptive to the council and the proceedings. They can say basically whatever they want, as offensive as that might be.
That is true. And for those of us who have been mayor, we probably have experienced a night or two of that in our term. So, but that's what America is, and that's what we hold dear to our hearts. My opinion, actually, kind of mirrors what Michael and said, and that's kind of frightening to think. Just kidding.
Oh.
I'm good with 6 o'clock. I do like the thought of, and maybe it should be done with all of the groups that we have, to have maybe a comprehensive assessment of what's happening, what our engagement is, what our expectation is, to each of the commissions, boards, but obviously, it's, specifically to this one, I would certainly support that prior to making or taking a hard step. And I would agree that option 2 would be the one that I would like. I'm curious a little bit about the flexibility in who would have the ability to say that my issue is important enough to have Zoom, what would be the benchmark there?
So, Mayor, if I can, just really quick, I think that determination would have to be made, and I'm looking at the city attorney and city clerk, is before the meeting is published.
Right.
We'd have to basically say, hey, this agenda will allow Zoom meeting.
Right.
This agenda will not. So allowing would be the exception. So that would be a staff call.
Yeah.
Who sets the agenda, and then you would get council members that would, after the posting of the agenda, potentially weigh in as like the mayor asking for that to be allowed. So, which invites Brown Act issues all the way across the board amongst colleagues.
More frightening than
Yes.
freedom of speech.
So I
didn't
don't
say it was a good idea. I just.
Yeah.
But it's, council member, it is the logical thing that comes up. It's how do we, I think what everyone struggles with, if I just can, is that it's been a really valuable tool for this body as we've gone about. We've had instances and had experiences that have not been so great. And I know other cities and special districts and transportation authorities have had some really significant Zoom interactions that have been disruptive, to say the
Right.
least. And so most cities are leaning towards the removal of that, but not to say that we have to be one of those cities. So I would just say the hybrid option of allowing it does have some policy related issues that we would have to work through. I'm not sure if that's the way the council wants to go tonight. We're prepared to provide you a solution that may meet
Right.
your expectations. We would have to come back on that front.
My concern lies in the chance that could become a political tool. It could be weaponized in ways that are not intended. Personally, I'm a conversationalist. I'm a relational guy, and I love a good, hearty exchange. I don't shy away from that. That's kind of been how I've led, and so I'm all for that. But I also have been on this council for 9 years, and as much as sometimes the public comment period has been raucous and unsavory and uncomfortable. I would much rather have the person standing right there and telling me that I'm an idiot and that I should do this and that than have a Zoomer from wherever saying that may not even represent a token of what our city says. So I don't think that it's bad to go back to the way that we were. It's not a hill I want to die on, but I do feel bad about the couple of times that I know that racist things were said, racist words were, said, and it was highly offensive to the people that were up here. And we should not live in fear, and I don't. But if I had a choice, I think I would go with option 2. But that's why the 5 of us are here, to give sage advice and wisdom to each other and to what our city does. But those are the comments that I would make. So,
Mr. Mayor, is it
Yes.
possible that we have basically 3 items here? We have the 6 o'clock, the changing the time, the frequency for the commission, and the virtual versus non-virtual. Can we break those up into 3 separate votes?
I'd look at staff to
Yeah.
give us guidance on
Yeah.
that.
So I'll start with the first one. I'll move to for the community services to go to 6 p.m.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion has been made by Michael and a second by Gary that the starting time for that be changed from 7 to 6 p.m.
I will now conduct a roll call. Councilmember Alves?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedel?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes, and please vote via the computer too. Thank you.
We're all
Okay.
good. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay,
I'll make a second motion for option number 2 for virtual meetings.
Councilmember, if I can get some clarity, I think option 2 provides some options for remote participation, but to be clear, option 2 would not allow Zoom, but would allow for public comment, but would allow Zoom or similar technology for,
It's only for presenters,
yes.
only for presenters.
Or staff
Or
or
staff.
appointed or
Correct, as
elected
written.
officials.
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to make perfectly clear that's what we're all talking about.
As written.
Thank you, Councilmember.
okay, there's been a motion to consider option 2 by Michael. Is there a second on that?
I second it.
Gary, second it. Could I just ask a question? And maybe it's my lack of technical knowledge, but you had mentioned that we could still stream everything. And I'm assuming that means doing what I think we're attempting to do now. We're on channel 3 or whatever channel that we're on. So the public could still see and hear everything that's going on, public comment, any oral or physical
They would see-
slides or anything
Yes.
that is here. Okay.
They would see the meeting just as it runs now.
Okay.
The only component that we wouldn't be doing is we wouldn't be checking for public comment
Yeah.
through Zoom or through whatever.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to clarify what I thought you had said. So, okay. Any other questions,
And
Gary?
Actually, a question.
Sure.
By utilizing option number 2, would somebody still be allowed to participate via Zoom, just not comment? Because you can utilize Zoom as a webinar. So
Yes.
people could,
They could participate, they could join, watch the meeting, they just couldn't comment.
yes, if somebody did not have channel 3 available or,
Or YouTube, we also,
Yeah,
stream, yeah.
that's kind of
Correct.
what I was
Okay.
wanting to ask. Yeah.
okay, then yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You asked it in a clearer way.
And just to be perfectly clear, just remind everyone, you can still provide comment under option 2 through email, through written correspondence, so on and so forth. So it's not just at the dais. There's still other
Right.
forms.
We
of
would
public
not be
comment.
eliminating that as, I think, per option 2. If
No, you would not. You
if
wouldn't.
it's however it comes. Okay, please vote and then we'll have a oral roll call, please.
Councilmember Alves?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedel?
No.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last, I'll just need a motion to approve the resolution and the proposed changes. Do you have a question?
Just a reminder, I know this is the last one, but we also, I believe, have recommendation from the council to come back with community services.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we take no action on changing the frequency of the meetings.
Correct.
And instruct staff to maybe find a way to coordinate some sort of guidance so that we can make sure that we get back to utilizing the community services in the way that they can bring their talents forward and help us in the best. way
So we
possible.
actually have just met with all the staff liaisons and they're getting ready. They're starting to prep bylaws for each committee. So those will be presented to the council. So that might be a good time for you to evaluate their roles and the different areas you want them to deal with.
But
So
do we need to have a motion to take no
No,
action?
because that's already being handled. We're
Because
already-
it's on the agenda. So
Uh,
do we have to, can we just take it?
No action on the frequency is all I need, and I just need a motion to approve the resolution with the proposed changes to the that outline the other changes to the public meeting rules and protocols.
So moved.
I'll
They already,
second
that was the first one.
Yeah, so I moved and Mr. Friedel seconded it.
Okay. Madam Clerk, so you heard that, that Karen moved that and Mayor Pro Tem seconded. And if you can show that on the record and then,
Okay, before we take a vote, just
Yeah.
for clarity, and I'm
For
not
clarity.
protocol here,
Right.
but Eddie, I got you here. Had you come down tonight? You okay with what we're conversation? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
okay.
Councilmember Alves?
Yes.
Well, here, wait. So there's nothing here. So the question that I was going to ask is, we understand what we're voting on here.
So the item currently
I just want to
before
make
you
sure,
is to
because a
approve.
blank slate is kind of scary, that's what our Congress does sometimes. They just blank slate it,
Is to approve the resolution attachment A with the proposed changes to meeting protocols, minus the frequency change that is outlined in there, that will be removed.
Okay, all right. So all minds clear? Any questions on that? Okay. Okay, please vote and then the clerk called a roll call.
Councilmember Alves?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedel?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I think that is all done. Is that correct, Kathleen?
Yes. We are good to go.
We're good to go on
Item
that
number
one?
12.
Okay, good. All right. Item 12, authorize the city manager to execute contract option 2 for transit operations and maintenance services to Transportation Concepts, Inc. for $1,870,512 over fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Vanessa is here
Hi.
to report and give us the details on this before we pepper you with questions.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I will be presenting our amendment number 4. So in 2017, we awarded a transit operations and maintenance contract to Transportation Concepts. So it's for a 5-year base with 2 2-year options. The base contract did end in fiscal 22, and we adopted the option 1 extension for fiscal 23 and 24 in June of 22. So that's ending this year. Staff is recommending exercising option 2 to ensure continuity of operation. So that'll be for the next 2 fiscal years. And it's critical as our transit has been transitioning into a more modern dispatching and customer interface system, as well as moving towards zero emission technology. So staff is recommending that the city council authorize the city manager to execute contract option 2 for transit operations and maintenance services to Transportation Concepts, Inc. for $1,870,512 over fiscal years 2025 and 2026. Thank you. And I can take any questions as well.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for that update. David, since you come from the transportation world, and I know I always call on you last, I'm going to give you the first shot at any questions that you might have. Because your knowledge of transportation is pretty vast, so.
Thank you. This is a silly question because you wouldn't recommend it if it wasn't the case. But I'm assuming that the provided service and the expertise that this vendor is bringing to us exceeds or meets our expectations, and we want to stick around with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So they have met all of our contract requirements. They've exceeded, exceptional service, especially during COVID, and the challenges of the pandemic. They were able to maintain staffing and continuity of service. And then also continuing with the last option, we, due to rising operating costs, inflation, and insurance costs, this really is giving us a bang for our buck. So we're unlikely to reduce costs and improve service if we were to bid at this time for a new contract.
And I do recall they were quite cooperative during the pandemic service issues and flexing,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it would certainly be worthwhile to recognize that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, David, thank you. Karen, any questions? Michael?
Thank you, Vanessa. Just one question for you.
Yes.
How's our ridership?
Our ridership has been pretty steady. It's been growing a little bit. Again, not anything near before COVID, but we're slowly getting there. So yeah, that's what I have to say about ridership.
So do we
But
have those
it's
little-
gradually increasing.
Do we have those little screens in the buses with a happy face if they liked the service or
We
not?
don't have those, actually, but those would be good to put. I think they would be very positive.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, actually. Thank you.
Gary?
No questions. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask a little bit of that. So is there a survey or is there a data point that either you guys do or the North Star does that tells us how the public feels about that, or?
Yes, absolutely. So every year we do a customer survey.
Okay,
So we'll either, do that by riding on the bus, taking surveys on the bus, or, doing it on the phone. We also put out online surveys. So we do that every year regardless. But also we've been doing it more frequently with our short range transit plan. And feedback has been mostly positive, of course. Well, I would say 9 out of 10 times, 90% of it has been positive, supportive, and people are very happy with our service.
so anything that, and you're going to have stuff that's not. So anything that's you would consider big, are they pretty quick to pivot and change whatever, is not a positive experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally negative comments are things that they're not reasonable, they're not within
Yeah,
reason. But if they're within reason, absolutely, we are willing to accommodate all riders.
Okay.
That's what I have to say about that.
So let me ask the other question. Safety. I have not heard that we've had like accidents and all this kind of stuff. So I'm assuming that safety has been very, very good, but I guess it warrants, yeah. And I'm afraid to ask it because it's like, guy just asked it and tomorrow they'll hit a curb or something. But, so I'm not trying to jinx it, but how has their safety record been?
So safety has been quite good and positive.
Good.
There hasn't been anything that has come up, so that's a good sign. And there's always regular trainings for the drivers and things like that, and safety wise, and even just new, rules or ADA refreshers. So luckily nothing has happened. But then if something does happen, it's corrected or resolved, or we just explore whatever option that we have to go through to rectify.
Right. I thought I heard Steven say once that a lot of students use this.
Oh, yes.
Am I right there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Midday
like junior high students and just
high
a lot of
schoolers.
students,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's been a positive thing. And
Oh, they love it. Yeah. They're probably one of our strongest demographic.
oh, really?
And within a short span of time, because it's afternoon school dismissal. But we have a lot of the student riders, which has been great. And
I think
they
that
like
that's
it.
important because, as they see the kind of the use of this and the ease of this as they grow older, maybe it'll be more apt for them just to use buses and subways and metro and stuff.
They won't need the EV chargers because they'll be using the bus and the.
Well,
train.
maybe, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that kind of carries forward, but if they have a great experience here, they're probably going to have the, leaning toward doing it as they
Hope
grow.
so.
So good. All right. Okay, we have a motion here by Karen, seconded by David. Please vote and ask the clerk to call the roll call.
Councilmember Alowitz,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedel,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, item 13, consideration of resolutions initiating the Tuesday, November 5, 2024 City of Glendora City Council General Municipal Elections. And to report is Kathleen Sussman, our city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Tonight, I'm here to request City Council approve two resolutions that will initiate the process for the City of Glendora general municipal election that is scheduled to be held on November 5th, 2024. This election will fill the 3 seats for the City of Glendora City Council, representing Districts 2, 3, and 5. Each seat is for a 4-year term. At this point, I'm going to provide you with a little bit of background. In the last couple of years, the City of Glendora has actually gone through some transitions when it comes to its elections. Originally and traditionally, an at-large election city had to transition to districts due to litigation filed against it back in 2017. The City of Glendora has 5 districts. It should be noted for the audience that these districts are different than the school districts. And for the November 5th, 2024 election, only registered voters for districts 2, 3, and 5 will be able to vote and or run for an open seat. Districts 1 and 4 will have their next election in November of 2026. All council members serve 4-year terms unless they're filling in for an unscheduled vacancy. And if anybody is interested in learning more about their district, a council district, or what district they live in, the information is available on the city's website at www.cityofglendora.org. Find your district. The 2 resolutions before you are going to do 2 things. The first resolution initiates the election process and sets the regulations that we will be following for the November 2024 elections. Well, the second resolution requests election services from Los Angeles County Registrar. we have been informed while an original estimate of $130,000 was received from LA County when we did our estimate for this election about 6 months ago. Due to changes, there is an anticipation that that estimate might be a little under. We will not get the actual numbers until, of course, probably actually January of next year following the election. At this point, though, the $130,000 has been budgeted, and we are not asking for any authorization for additional funding at this time. Before you is a basic election timeline. Tonight, we're looking to have council consider and adopt the resolutions calling the election and also requesting services. We're in the process of scheduling a pre-nomination workshop, which we're hoping to have some more information out to you, everybody, within the next week and a half. In July, a notice of election will have to be published. And then July 15th, the nomination period opens and closes on August 6th, or 9th, sorry. We also have extended nomination periods for August 14th if a candidate or an incumbent does not choose to run for an office. Again, non-incumbents will be eligible for filing those for 3 additional days. The rest of the dates outlined on here are dates when the vote by mails will be mailed out, election day, information guides go out, and then deadlines associated with the canvass. In order to initiate the November 2025 24 election, at this time, I request that the City Council adopt a resolution giving call and giving notice to hold a general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 for the election of certain officers as required by the provisions of law of the state of California relating to general law cities and adopting regulations for candidates pertaining to candidate statements submitted to the voters. Resolution 2 will request that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles direct the registrar and county clerk to administer, manage, and oversee the City of Glendora's general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, and request the consolidation of said election, and also direct the city clerk to forward certified copies of said resolution to the County Board of Supervisors and the registrar for their consideration. I'm available to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you so much. This is very important work for the governance of our city. So any questions related to this, Michael? Gary, anything? Karen, David? One question from, okay.
Just a point of clarification on the extended nomination period, should that qualifier be in place? Is that nomination period applied across all the election or just the respective district?
Just the district where that incumbent chose not to run.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Okay, anything else? There's a motion made by Karen and Michael, seconded to adopt the 3 points that Kathleen has just made. Please vote, and the clerk will call the roll call.
Councilmember Alves?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friednall?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. And just so that the public knows, the days of counting the ballots here are long gone.
They are.
Uh,
You have to go to Norwalk now to watch the
They
process.
they used to be able to do that. People could come in and have
Actually,
their coffee here.
did it in City of
and,
Industry this.
Yeah,
last
the new voting center.
The old Circuit
And
City.
now the votes are collected and they go down to a centralized area. And Kathleen just goes home and watches the results just like we all do. She's not involved like she used to be. I'm sure she misses that greatly. So, all right. Mr. Morton,
Oh, good evening.
let me read what you're up here for. Conduct the first reading and introduction of a ordinance amending section 1.12.020B of the Glendora Code relating to custody and use of the office seal and other insignia. And we're happy to have Greg Morton here to present this. It's yours, Greg.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. As you said, I'm here tonight to talk about the first reading of an ordinance to amend the Glendora Municipal Code regarding the custody and use of official city branding. In seeking to accomplish the branding goals adopted by City Council for the 2023 through 2025 strategic plan, the media team and city stakeholders worked with JPW Communications, a Southern California-based firm specializing in government communications and branding, on the development of a new brand. Utilizing a 5-phase approach, JPW incorporated comprehensive research that included community and stakeholder surveys and assessments of the city's rich history to develop a unique wordmark and insignias that help balance Glendora's past with its future aspirations, attract new business, and enhance quality of life for residents and businesses that call this city home. Importantly, this new branding does not replace the historical city seal. Following approval of the new branding by City Council on March 12th of this year, Phase 5 of the project will begin with implementation of the new brand. This final step in the branding process officially begins on June 13th with the mayor's State of the City address at the Crowther Teen and Family Center beginning at 5:30 p.m. Please RSVP with the Glendora Chamber of Commerce if you haven't already. That was a shameless plug just for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir.
The rollout will continue through the summer and will include an official brand standard guidelines manual, new uniforms for staff, and enhanced marketing, a new mural at the recently renovated Pompey Memorial Sports Park, as well as new wayfinding signage throughout the city, and culminating with the website redesign project currently underway and anticipated to be completed in November. As the rollout begins, it is important to regulate the use of this new branding to eliminate uncertainty in the community as to how all city branding is to be used. With that, staff recommends that the City Council introduce for a first reading of an ordinance entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, amending the Glendora Municipal Code Title I, Custody and Use of the Official Seal and Other Insignias, Section 12.020, Official City Seal and City Logo. I'm available if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Greg? Michael, start with you. Anything? Gary?
Yeah, I do have one question. Would this allow us to give a license to somebody to use it? I specifically think about the 100th anniversary of Route 66 is coming up, and so there may be opportunities to promote the city of Glendora. Would we have the ability to be able to license this to a private entity that could use it if we chose to?
Yes, and we would probably approach that as a partnership opportunity.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
Yep.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Karen? Anything? David?
No.
Okay. There's a motion by Karen, seconded by David. Please vote, and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Alowis,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedel,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right. That concludes the agenda which we have tonight. Time for member and staff closing comments. Karen, I'll start with you. Anything? Michael? Gary?
I just want to put a plug out there. We're just a little over a month away from our annual Field of Heroes. And so information is out. If anybody has any interest in honoring somebody that they have the respect for with a flag, our displays will be at Gladstone Park at the south end of town this year instead of at Sunflower School like they have been in the past. And on top of the flag display, we're actually going to be having a movie in the park on Friday, July 5th. And I believe we're showing Top Gun. Is that correct? Yep. So Top Gun is going to be shown. It's going to be the first time we do a movie in the park down at Gladstone. So we're looking forward to that being very successful.
Great. Thank you, Gary. David, anything?
Nothing, thank you.
I don't have anything other than what I earlier said. Adam, anything? City attorney, anything? Maybe I should say this on Monday, June 3rd, we're going to have a very special time where we honor some of the members of our team. Police chief will be officially sworn in a public way, and will be a captain and some others. I just want you to know that you're invited to honor them in this way, if you would choose. That's on Monday at 4 p.m. at Bidwell Forum, and it's going to be a great exchange and a season of life for GPPD and for our new chief. So wanted everybody to know that. Anybody else from staff that's out there that has stayed a long day? We appreciate you. If there's nothing more, we'll conclude this meeting at 8:51. Thank you.